Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, we get back in touch with our good friend, Bob Stempski. We first got to know Bob when he was brewing on a frozen lake. Well, now, Bob is looking into taking his brewing hobby to the next level. We have a spirited conversation. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing, and many thanks to everybody who was helping out in that way. If you go to patreon.com/basicbrewing, you can see a long list of stuff that you can access if you sign up as a supporter, and many thanks to the new Patreon subscribers who are signing up every week. Your help is very much appreciated. It's been a long time since Steve and I have gotten together to shoot video, and I apologize for that. The good news is that during that time, we've built up a collection of beers and mead to talk about on the video. So we may have a marathon recording day soon, which is always fun and dangerous. So stay tuned, and thanks for your patience. Don't give up on us yet. I sent out samples of my Brown Forest Light beer to Scott Housel, Adam Ross, and Chris Colby. That was the recipe that's in response to my latest Mash Your Luck challenge. It didn't come out as I expected, but I think it's a fun little beer. Scott says he's sending beer back this way too, in his Mash Your Luck challenge. So we're headed on down the road. Steve and I are planning to get together to sample beers from Sean Terrell of 2 Mile Brewing in Leadville, Colorado this week. One of those is in response to Sean's Mash Your Luck challenge. I'm very excited about that. You know, I've known Sean for a long time. I don't think I've ever gotten to taste his beers. I hope he's good. I think he is. It's been dang cold here, as well as in other parts of the country where y'all aren't used to being so cold. Perfect time to brew a lager. Well, our friends and sponsors at Imperial Yeast are introducing a seasonal strain to help you with that. L18 Goat is Imperial's seasonal Bavarian lager yeast. Goat is available now. Casey at Imperial says it's the Ayinger strain, and it's said to balance complex malt character with hop flavors and aromas. I'm thinking of brewing a delicious Bock, to go with the Goat name. It's in all caps, Goat. I'm sure that means greatest of all time. Is that right? Oh, man. I'm drooling just thinking about that. If I go big on a Bock, I'll probably do a starter since it's a lager. But generally, thanks to the 200 billion cells in each packet of Imperial yeast, my stir plate is dusty and my airlocks are usually bubbling before bedtime. Take advantage of that cold weather. I'm looking forward to the cold tap water to chill down that lager wort. Brew you up a lager with L18 Goat from Imperial Yeast. Ask your local homebrew store to stock up, and you can check out all the dependable deliciousness at imperialyeast.com. That's imperialyeast.com. I can't wait. I've got an empty keg. The other keg is almost empty. Got to empty it out so I can use my kegerator as a lagering chamber. L18 Goat. Okay. Bob Stempski is one of my favorite people. I've gotten the chance to spend time with Bob at homebrew cons, and whenever you get Bob and Steve Wilkes in the same room, it's a hoot. Bob is also a very good brewer, and these days he's investigating and experimenting with taking his brewing to the next level. Well, Bob Stempski, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Oh, it's nice to be back, James.
It's been a long, long time.
It has. You guys are always in my mind, but yeah, it has been.
Maybe I didn't.
Okay, Willie. Steve's supposed to be doing that stuff.
He's a drummer. Yeah. So you were on my mind. We went to Milwaukee this past summer, and I tried to get a hold of you, and I failed. I tried texting. I tried email. I don't know what email address I used, but apparently you're off in the woods somewhere. You're off, you're not off the grid, but you're off the cell. I couldn't get a hold of you, and it breaks my heart because we might have had an opportunity to get together closer to your home territory.
Oh, that would have been great. Yeah, I don't have cell service here. Once in a while I get one bar, and I call people just so I can finally use my phone.
You had one bar, but you got kicked out of it, right?
Oh yeah, that's good. Good. Well, I live in a one bar town. How's that?
I still got it. Well, I'm glad you sound. We talked full disclosure. We talked a little bit the other day, which brought us to this conversation. But it sounds like you're doing well, and you're the same old Bob, and I'm so happy to hear it.
Yeah, mentally I haven't changed, Eddie. I'm still about 9 or 10.
Out of what?
No, 9 or 10 years old by humor. Or lack of it, whatever you call it.
I thought you were going out of 100. I was like, well.
Well, I'm shooting for 100. My mom's 101. So
wow.
She's a lead for me. I got to take after her.
Wow. Well, hopefully you got some of that DNA.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit about your local beer culture, meaning your house. And I was asking, you brewing as much beer as you used to, because you were always brewing lots of beer and had lots of beers on tap. And so talk about how, things have kind of changed around your house.
Well, years ago, when I was really getting into brewing, I was lucky enough to have my grandsons. They were around and they would help me brew, and they'd grind the grain. I'd take it off the drill and put the crank on it just because they like doing that crank, And when I went out to the lake, and we'd brew on the lake. The grandkids were all out there and they couldn't wait. And then as they were getting older, they'd come down. I'd have 4 taps going with a variety of beers on there. And they just loved going down there and filling up the glasses, and they'd ask all the adults, what they wanted, and it was great. And I thought, someday those grand boys of mine are gonna brew with me, and we're gonna be out there together and drink beer, and it's gonna be great. Well, the next thing I know, one's coming back from Iraq and Iran, another one coming off the Nimitz. He was on there for 6 years. They're all adults. Got another one's a paratrooper.
Wow.
They're all coming back home, and they're swinging a bottle of Royal Crown in a purple velvet bag, and it says, "Well, you gonna have some beer?" Nah, I don't. I thought, what the heck happened? And to be honest, I noticed even my son-in-laws and the kids weren't drinking as much beer as they were, and I was stuck with 4 kegs in the refrigerator, and I'm trying to drink this stuff up, and well, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. But I found out if you dump it out by a tree, you can kill a tree real quick. Yeah,
which may come in handy if you want to get rid of the tree.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, it really did work out right, because it was right by the garage, and I was always worried about that one, but it came down.
Well, Steve killed some plants in the brewing process because he decided to water his wife's flower garden with the output of his immersion chiller.
Oh.
But he started a little too early, and he basically boiled the house plants.
It sounds like them.
Well, I'm grateful for your family's service in the military. You're a veteran yourself.
Yep, at Vietnam, back in the 60s.
Yeah, we should have a bonus episode just for some of your stories.
Oh my gosh, no, it'd be X-rated. We wouldn't like that. This is a family show.
The one about how you tried to blow up your your commanding officer. Or
oh,
whatever.
Geez, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, they dusted him off. He was all right once he got back to the hospital in the States. I never heard from him again, though. I don't know. Must have hurt his feelings.
So to get back on topic, so your family's drinking habits have kind of mirrored apparently, the trends in the general public.
Yeah, I noticed. Well, my beer club dried up with blasted COVID. I was planning on going on down to Nashville, and I was all excited for that. And yeah, the club just pooped out. No, that was the only place I ever went and enjoyed myself. I love going out with the guys and gals in the club and swapping beers and everything. And then not only that, my local supplier kind of pooped out too because now they got their own brewery and everything, but their store, people stopped going because they couldn't get in, and they had to move stuff out. They couldn't take it out the front door, and the people just got tired of it. I think they started drinking canned beer from some of the nice places around, and and they just says maybe it's not worth it anymore. And when people get older, we're not always social as we should be. And I never was a social guy. You can tell that.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
Well, that's a shame. I mean, we're kind of in a similar situation around here on the homebrew side. Our local homebrew store is no more, and of course we got the mail order places and the online places, but it's just not the same as being able to walk in and bounce your ideas off of a real live person one-to-one.
Oh yeah.
So you've been investigating distilling, and I want to talk a bit about that. But I guess the first thing we got to talk about is that a legal disclaimer of how it is in the United States. And I've done a little bit of research, and on the federal level, home distilling is illegal. Period. And unless you get like a fuel license or something like that. But as far as making your own or distilling your own alcohol for consumption at home, it's illegal. But according to, I did some research on different websites, and according to one website called stilldragon.com, and they make distilling equipment, so they have information about it. I know nothing about them. But they say that some states have loosened restrictions on distilling. Alaska, Arizona, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Missouri, and Rhode Island. But it's kind of like the marijuana laws are now, in that it's according to the federal government, it's still illegal, but many states, including Arkansas, have loosened restrictions on marijuana. Is that what you understand from your research?
Yes, absolutely. Some states, they've basically legalized it for home use, just like we started off with wine and beer and so on. But yet they're still under the federal law. But the federal is not enforcing it. They're really looking out for some guy that's making this rot gut stuff and selling it. That's the only people they care about. They've been very kind, I think, to the home brewers because they know it's going to happen. There's all sorts of groups and clubs and people bantering with Congress on and changing the laws. And I know it's coming. In fact, I think it was Texas. They one of the brewing clubs sued that they should be able to brew alcohol at home, and they won. They allowed it, and then I think there is some sort of a deal when the Supreme Court of a state makes a law. It got to go to the federal or something, and it's got to get reviewed or rebuked or something, and they accepted it. So but then when I was all excited about it, but then I watched a video about it from a equipment maker, and he says, it only revolves around that club, which seems odd to me. Why would one club be able to brew and nobody else could? So it's still nebulous and in the air. But the fact is, if you go on YouTube, there's zillions of people out there, some real losers, I hate to say, and some real professional guys that they're home distillers. They've been on for 5, 6, 7 years. They show their equipment. They show how they work with it. They test it. They drink it. They don't have a problem. Nobody's after them. And, they've got 100,000 people subscribed to their channel. So, I think majority of people are just quietly brewing at home, and they're not going to make a big deal out of it, but it is fun, I guess.
Yeah, I think that the federal government is mostly interested in getting their tax money.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got a big setup, set up in the woods with, I think there was a reality show. I don't know if it's still on or not, but there was a reality show about moonshiners, and they had huge setups, and I was like, how are they not getting caught?
Yeah, yeah, so it's amazing, but yeah, I was talking with someone that was on the show, and they were kind of amazed with the whole thing. And he said it was real professional the way they handled it, but yet when you watch these hillbillies out there with that equipment, oofta, I don't think, I think I'd stay away from that stuff,
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah, my dad said that back in the day, back during Prohibition, he had a cousin who actually, I think he was blinded, or at least partially blinded by some bad moonshine. Now I don't know if that was because it was not made right, or because it had adulterants in it or something. I don't know whether they put like wood alcohol in there to kind of boost the alcohol percentage or something like that. You don't know what goes into those things. So are you worried at all if you were to get into this kind of thing? Are you worried about the safety of it?
No, not at all. It's true. Back in the old days, there was a lot of adulterating the liquor just to stretch it, and they put in wood alcohol, which is pure method. Let me get my teeth straight here.
Is it methanol?
Yeah, methanol. And I was thinking of the word method to get into it, and methanol just totally went out my little brain here. And I'm sober. This is regular, just 76-year-old man memory. But the thing is, now here I'm going to show that I haven't totally lost my memory. You need 30 milliliters of methanol to cause blindness. Now, 30 milliliters is a small amount. And for example, if you used a fruit-based mash, apples, peaches, a lot of people like peach liquor, you would need 27 gallons to produce 30 milliliters of meth, So nobody's going to do that, And if you're using a grain, just regular old two-row or something like that, it would take 76 gallons or 287 liters to produce the 30 milliliters that you need to go blind. And which is kind of funny, not funny, going blind, yeah. No, it's funny in that it isn't the meth that's doing it. The methanol is conveyor or something. There's something called alcohol dehydrogenasis, and that converts methanol into formaldehyde, and that's what gets you. And the funny thing about it is that the alcohol degenerous, whatever it is, it's some big fancy word, it prefers ethanol to methanol. So if you're drinking a drink that does have methanol in it, that alcohol dehydrated or whatever you want to call it, it prefers the ethanol. So it uses that, and it doesn't convert the methanol into formaldehyde. So your body actually gets rid of most of the methanol until it runs out of the ethanol. So really you don't have to worry about it.
Disclaimer: Bob is not a doctor nor a scientist. Do
No,
your
I,
own research.
but I
But
can't.
is there a way that you can? I'm not familiar with the distilling process. I'm a little bit, but
Mhm.
is there a way that you can reduce the amount of methanol in the process?
In the process of making a 6-gallon batch, which most people do, uh, the only thing you can really do is you can actually pectic enzyme. We use that sometimes in brewing,
Mm-hmm.
and that can reduce the amount of methanol by 40 to 70%. And probably goes the same when you're making a mead or a fruit beer, fruit based beer. So yeah, you can do that. But the original way we thought we could do it, and this is what kind of the beauty of it, is that all of these bad things that are out there. Let me just think now. I had a diagram here that I just loved it. It kind of showed it to me real good. Yeah, here it is. Um, the first thing that comes out is 4-shots, and what it is it's all the bad things. It's methanol, ethyl acetate, acetone, and things like that. They all start evaporating at 143 degrees,
Mm.
148. And thing is, when you're still going, you're starting from neutral temperatures, and you're going up through those before you get to the ethanol, which starts at like 175 degrees Fahrenheit. So you're actually getting theoretically all of these bad things out before you even start processing.
Is that what they call the heads? Is it the heads and then the tails afterwards?
It's 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 4 shots. The very first thing is 4 shots, and it's you take maybe 250 milliliters, depending on the batch size and all that, and that's the worst of the worst. It stinks. You can't drink it. It's horrible. Most people save it, actually, put it in a big jug, and each time you do this, you add it up, and this stuff is great for cleaning windows,
Mm.
for killing plants, starting fires. Uh, you can run your lawnmower on it. It's horrible. You can't drink it. But that's where the methanol is. It's in that little teeny bit, but it's such a small amount that, in theory, that gets it out. But
Mm.
I've done a lot of research, and it doesn't really work that way. It's a real complicated scientific thing, and I can't pronounce most of the words. But what it boils down to is the methanol is kind of smeared across the whole thing, and across your whole output, and it's not worth at all to. Hang on a second. Turning off the heat in here. I'm ready to pass out. I forgot I had it on. Holy moly. It's 77 degrees in here. My God. Outside, it's 1 degree above zero. Oh, maybe I could explain it better by saying there's like 4 areas. First, it's 4 shots. That's basically the poison. Then you get the heads, which are not that great, but I'll get back to that. Then you get the hearts. That's the good ones, pure ethanol, just sweet.
Mm.
And the fourth thing is the tails, and that has like a fusel alcohols in it. It's a little thicker, and when it comes off the still, off the arm where it drips out, it comes off. And the way most people would do it is they have like 15 or 20 jars, little pint jars, and you'll fill them up. You mark them 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And you start filling them up. And then you just go from 1, and when that gets filled, you go to 2, and you go all the way across. And you might have 15 jars, 20, depending on how much you got. And it comes off in a spectrum. So like your first 2 jars, 2 pints, it's you can still get a little acetone smell in there, and you really don't want it. So you save those for your next run. You can actually put them back in there, and then you start getting less of that acetone, and it gets clear, and then you get a beautiful bunch. Maybe jars 7 through 12 will be just beautiful, and then you start going to the tails, and it gradually gets kind of worse, but there's still some flavors in there. And then you basically disregard most of the tails. You reuse the heads, and that middle stuff is what you use. And it's kind of neat in the way that when you build a recipe, I got one right here. Here's some of the ingredients in there: cracked corn, 2 pounds, 3 pounds of brie smoked cherry, pound of flaked rye, smoked pale malt, brisk whiskey malt, brewer's malt, and 2 pounds of brown sugar. And you got different flavors. So when you're testing each of these bottles, which each glass, I should say, you might pick up kind of rye in bottle 7, but nowhere else. And then you might get all the smoke in jar 5 and 6. And then you might pick up a brown sugar in 8, 9, or 10. And the tough part is you got to figure out which ones you want to put together. It's like mixing your own chemistry, to make whatever you're making.
Wow.
So it comes off in a spectrum. You might have oranges in here. I mean, I've made a lot of things like with oranges and cinnamon and so on. It's amazing. Your bottle number 4. Oh yeah, that's cinnamon. You don't get it anywhere else. And then the oranges would be real close to the tails. And it's just the way the still puts it out.
Wow. I had no idea that it would do that. So you could have your own little blending operation and make small batches of different flavors coming out of the same batch.
Yeah, and that's I want to say that's the fun of it, but it kind of is. Well, mostly because all the work is done, and then you're sitting there testing booze. I mean, what's wrong with that?
Of course, this is all in theory, right?
Yes, it's hypothermical. Hypothetical, which is pretty pathetical.
So in theory, from your research, what kind of equipment are you looking at that would be optimal for your ideal operation? It's mostly stuff that a brewer might already have, right?
Absolutely. What happened is when I was going to go to Nashville for the beer convention, and that got canceled, I said, well, I'm going to take the money I was going to use for the rooms, and I'm going to buy an electric outfit because I'm sick of all the messing around with all the propane and all that stuff. So I went out and I was going to get the same kind of setup as you got. And then it was in Zymergy or one of the magazines. It was Anvil Brewing, and they had kind of a clone of a grandfather or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And they had, along with that, they says you got this attachment to distill water or whatever else.
Essence.
Yeah.
Essences.
Yeah, that
like
works too.
Potpourri essences. Yeah.
They know what they were doing. Yeah. So Anvil.
It's kind of like in the back of certain magazines back in the 70s, they would have these grow lights, and then they would have rose bushes inside the grow lights, and it's like, oh, you could grow some nice roses with those grow lights.
Yeah, I went with the sea monkeys. I went with that. Remember those?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Flying shrimp, yeah.
Yeah, I wondered the X-ray specs, but I heard they didn't really work. So
Yeah, I didn't. I tried it too. I tried it too. I was desperate. I was desperate in my 20s too. They look kind of funny walking around with those glasses, but they seem to work. Anyway, to get back on track, I ended up getting a 10.5 gallon setup, and I bought the Turbo 500 condenser, and they fit one on top. So I just brewed beer with the set. It's got everything. It's complete. So I brewed my beer, but then when I got the condenser, well, then I wanted to distill water because we had, I, in Wisconsin, well, other places too, in winter it gets so damn dry, you're getting shocked, and you can compensate a little bit for it. Yeah, but one night, power went out and then went back on, and then the internet didn't work. So I went down to where I had my electronic stuff, sliding along in my socks, building up a good charge, and then I touched my modem, whatever, and man, blew it up. That was about $400 worth of electricity that went right through that thing. And so I said, I got to get some humidifier. And so I got a humidifier, and I used my big old 10.5 gallon thing to distill water, and I'm still doing it.
well, there you go.
Still doing it. Now, if I want to use it for something else, well,
So, theoretically, you could use it for nefarious things.
Yeah,
But completely unrelated. You've been doing some experimentation with flavoring alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, that was nice. What I do is I purchase some vodka, but most of the time I get the grain alcohol. The whatever brand it is. It's $34 or something, but it's very, very good, and it's 190 proof.
Mm.
And what I do with that is I have a tabletop distiller. It's supposed to be used for the same thing as anything else, essences, and to distill water for home use. And I use that to put in the humidifiers, which I have throughout the house. And I'll put in some of the alcohol. I got to add water to it because you can't have over 40% in any kind of, whether you got a big distiller or one of these tabletop ones. They're under $100, and they work. So I'll put the alcohol in there, and I'll also measure in juniper and all the other ingredients, which all totally escaped my mind already, probably from sampling too much stuff. But I add that together, and I make my own gin.
Oh.
And what's nice is I can add more or less juniper or whatever else is in there, and I can play with it. I get orange peels. I can put orange peels in it, a little bit of lemon, so on and so forth. So I can make. My wife loves her. It's a brand, Seagram's Lime, and so I tried to emulate that, and I got that. There's quite a few other things I did with wood and the vodka, and actually made something that tastes like whiskey with the vodka, with wood. I think I threw in a vanilla bean, coffee beans, and you grind them up a little bit, not pulverize them, but you put them into the vodka water and in this little tabletop thing. And as it comes out, of course, it comes out clear and everything, but it's got all the flavors melded into it. And I think that's really neat, because not only do I use it for most of the time, filling up the dehumidifiers all the time, or humidifiers, I should say. I like to play with that. I really do, and it makes a lot of keeps me out of the taverns.
So in theory, if someone wanted to play with, say, taking some pure grain alcohol and then proofing it, is it proofing it down? Is that what they say? They're diluting it.
Yes. Yeah, you're proofing it down. You're just diluting it. You just bring it into whatever, 40% alcohol is 80 proof. So that's where most liquors are. But when you put it in one of these little tabletop distillers, now you already got the vodka, so you're not doing anything illegal or anything. All you're doing is flavoring the stuff you bought. So yeah.
So you could, do you use like wood staves, or do you use spirals, or chips, or what have you found is the best way to get get something that approximates like a good commercial whiskey or bourbon?
What I use is basically everything I get from my northern brewery, where I order most of my stuff. I use the staves, the pieces. I use the dark, kind of smoked, or I don't know what they call the darkest ones. But the chips, I love the chips because that goes quickly. There's so much surface area. And I use those. I got a lot of those spirals from the wine, and I'll put those out in the smoker.
Oh.
And then I'll maybe blowtorch them a little bit, and and kind of rinse them real quick. But then you put them in after you burnt them, and let it sit. It's amazing how many pickle jars I've got. I don't really care for pickles as much as I used to, but you buy those big gallon jars. Throw out the pickles if you want, but you use those. You put your alcohol in there, and then you put in whatever you want. I'm big on vanilla beans and quite a few things. Like say, you don't want to pulverize it because then you gotta strain it through coffee filters, and they clog up something fierce. I put cocoa powder in one time, and it tasted good, but it took me all day to get that stuff filtered so it'll be nice and clear and everything. But yeah, it's perfectly legal doing that. You bought at the store, you paid your taxes. All you're doing is you're mixing a cocktail is what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Now, does it age well? I mean, do you set some aside and taste it after a while?
Well, I got this poor way of doing it, but yeah, I've got a bunch of these Italian jars with their flippy tops, and they got a wire thing, and I use a lot of those, and I stick my wood in and all that other stuff, and then I sip it like once a week, and then right about the time it's good, well, it's gone. Sometimes I sample it 3 or 4 times a day. It's amazing. You get in there, you want to see what's happening, and yeah, that's the way you do it. You could put it in there and it's another thing you could do. Actually, if you got a small enough jar and you got an ultrasonic jewelry cleaner, you leave that wood or chips in there with the booze, put it in there, heat it, and let it do its thing for 20 minutes or 15. Most of them have short timers, but all those little bubbles, they go in the wood. And then if you really want to get fancy, when you take it out, you put it in a freezer, let it freeze a little bit, get real cold. Then you put it back in the warm water and into the buzzer or whatever you want to call it. And what you're doing is you're putting stuff into the wood and taking it out, putting it into the wood, taking it out. Huh. A lot of people use that for regular whiskey and stuff like that if they want to move it along a little bit. Because there is something to say for age.
Huh.
I've got wood all over the yard here. I got trees coming out of my yin-yang, but I just don't have the right ones.
Right.
So
yeah, pine is not the best for.
No. Well, I tried rosemary, and what else did I try? I tried some herbs. Oh, and I tried. I wish I would have thought of that. It's Chesapeake Bay flavoring for fish. Old Bay.
Oh, yeah.
I put Old Bay in with some water and some vodka and ran it through the distiller. I'm talking the desktop one, and it comes out, and it's surprising how good that was.
Huh.
It was really good. I also took flowers one time, and when I put it in that distiller, I'll put the liquid in, and I'll add whatever I got. I'll turn it on, give it 10 minutes or something, turn it off, and let it mellow for maybe an hour or two. And then I go through the process of letting it a lot of times they're called air dryers or whatever, because they don't use water or anything. They've got a fan on top that pulls the liquid through, or the vapor through these coils, and then it spouts it out.
Oh.
In fact, mine, where it spouts, there's a little area there, and you can put charcoal filters in there that are pre-made. They're in little bags, like a tea bag, so you can filter that out. And while we're on the subject, if you've got cheap-ass vodka that really doesn't taste that good, but it's so damn cheap, run it through, I've got a water filter over here that I use exclusively for that. And with the charcoal, you just keep about 3 or 4 times, you go through it. And it turns out real good.
Huh.
It smooths that vodka out, or whatever you just made.
So just like a water pitcher, like a water filter pitcher?
Yeah, originally I did that, and now I got a bigger one. It holds like a gallon, and it's square, and it's got a little knobber on there. And in fact, I have 2 of them. I have one upstairs for water, for drinking water, because my water is pretty bad here. And I'll just run it through there, round about 4 times, and you got to throw the filter out. I tried, just for giggles, I tried putting water through there, clean, good water, and then seeing if that filter what it would do. And it came out so horrible. It was so bitter. And I'm assuming that bitterness is what was in that cheap vodka. And you just throw out that filter. But there's so much you can do. You can take one of those salad spinners, and you can take wine, freeze it to where it's like mush or slush. You put that in there, and you pound that salad spinner, and all the alcohol will come out, and then you got the ice in the middle, and you throw the ice out, and right there you've doubled your alcohol content of that cheap wine you put in there.
So that's like ice wine, or what they call freeze distilling or freeze concentrating.
Yeah, which of course is actually probably illegal. But
well, I got an opinion from somebody at the TTB back when we did a video episode about we did a freeze distilling of we did an ice barley wine. And somebody at the TTB wrote back and said they didn't have a problem with it, if you're doing it at home. But then I heard somebody else got an opinion from the TTB, and they said they didn't like it. So it depends on whose email you get, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, oh man, I tell you, it's such a complicated world. I'll tell you, since I've been doing this kind of stuff, I never was a whiskey man, but I spent $300 at the liquor store not that long ago buying all these different kind of whiskeys. So I'm trying to find out what I like, what tastes good, what doesn't. Do I want it kind of salty or caramely, or is it just plain? I paid a lot of money for education, and I got a lot of bottles too. Someday when I need to use them.
Yeah. It's just like when you get into home brewing and craft beer. Your beer budget goes up, and then you're ruined. Because you go to somebody's house and they try to give you a cheap, nasty beer, and you have to turn your nose up at it, or suffer through it.
Yeah,
it ruins you.
Yeah, it's ruined me pretty good. When I went to the doctor last time, I chubbed up a little bit because I was down quite a bit, but I went up a little bit. And he says, "You're going to have to work out more." And I says, "Is it all right if I just work out my liver?" And I've been doing a good job of it.
Well, you got to. Do you want to tell the story? You talk about your Vietnam. Not that Vietnam was funny. It wasn't, of course. But talk about your experience in the motor pool. Do you want to talk about your experience in the motor pool?
Yeah, it's all right. It's been a long time. That was in the 60s, which I have a lot of gaps in my memory from the 60s for, well, a lot of people do. It was a bad time. Yeah, well, what it was is I didn't drive when I went into service. So when I went into service, the first thing they did is made me a Jeep driver. I was a radio man. That's what I went to school for. He says, what do you know how to drive? And I says, well, really nothing. And he says, okay. And then they gave me a license for a 2.5-ton, quarter-ton Jeep. I don't know what other things I had on that license. And they gave me a 5-minute lesson on how to drive a Jeep. So that's what I was. And I was the captain's driver. And so I thought, well, okay, I'm doing all right. I'm getting there. But I wanted to clean up the Jeep. So I don't know, most people don't know it, but under the passenger seat, it flips up. And there's like a cover, a metal cover. It got a couple of snaps on it. You take it off, and there's your battery. So I clean that all out, clean the battery, take the cables off, and clean them up and whatnot. Put the whole thing together. And that night, we were in LZ Fat City, and we got hammered, and I had to take the captain up to the top of the mountain where we were, and we jumped on the Jeep and started going up the hill. Well, I didn't quite tie down those battery connections the way I should have. And then when he sat on there, that probably moved the cover down a little bit. And about halfway up the hill, there's all these sparks coming off from underneath the captain's seat. And he says, it's booby trapped. And he jumped down the side of the mountain. I think he broke his leg or his arm or something. So then we had to get a helicopter come in, and they flew him back to the States, and I never saw him again. That was that incident.
So so that's just to clarify. You didn't frag your.
No, it was totally. I didn't know what I was doing. No, that's Then he said, "You're not supposed to leave those up high. You got to push them down all the way and tighten them." Well, I didn't have a driver's license. I drove my whole life. Well, I was 18. I went right out of high school, right into the Army. Well, I went to Germany first, but I had to get out of there for a reason or two. But well, Germany wasn't bad. It just there was a bowling team, and all the big shots in the at Bad K, it was Bad Kreuznach, somewhere up there. They had this team, and it was doing real good, and it was in the championship. And then one guy, his mother died back in the States, and he had to leave, and they were looking for somebody to fill in. Well, I was a good bowler. I was bowling since I was a kid. I mean, I was good. So I filled in. And I think my high game was like 97. I was terrible. So the next day, I got off my nice cushy radio and ended up having to go to work in a motor pool, taking care of trucks. So I wanted to get out of there because I knew the captain didn't like me, or the colonel or whoever it was, because they lost the tournament because I was bragging how good I was. And I sort of did like Jordan Love did last night in the Packer game against the Eagles. I failed.
You weren't bunkmates with Joseph Heller, were you? The author of Catch-22?
No.
It sounds like a chapter out of his book.
Oh, I have to read that sometime, but I think it's banned. It might hurt my ears or something.
All right. Bob, this has been fun.
Ah,
I'm not sure how much we accomplished, but it sure was
yeah,
good getting back together with you.
sure. It's a shame you lost half your listeners, but what you do? Maybe they'll come back.
Uh, well, you're welcome to come back anytime if you discover something else in your experiments that you think is worth sharing, and hopefully we can get back together in real life, in person again soon.
Yes, maybe we can do that.
Thanks,
I'm always up for a trip.
thanks, Bob.
No, thank you, James.
Many thanks to Bob. Always a lot of fun to get together with him. And the fact that he got through a living hell like the Vietnam War with his sense of humor intact is much to his credit. I look forward to the next time we can get together. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to James at basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our mobile-friendly shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check that out at patreon.com/basicbrewing. It's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. In the meantime, stay well and stay tuned. So long.